What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Friday, March 24th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 10-game NBA slate tonight. And I apologize for the video yesterday. I actually gave 5 pretty good picks yesterday. One of them was Quentin Grimes at 3,400 DraftKings salary, scored 49 fantasy points. But that video, I scheduled it for what I thought was 8 a.m. Then apparently it was 8 p.m. So that was my fault last night, guys. That video did drop, but it dropped at like 8 o'clock after the game started. So my bad on that one. But let's get back into it. I won't make that mistake again. Okay, so at the point guard position, I like Marcus Smart from the Boston Celtics playing the Indiana Pacers, who have the 3rd worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing point guards. Marcus Smart has averaged 28.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He's projected at 27.8 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.1 times value. He's 5,500 DraftKings salary, 100 more on FanDuel, and Marcus Smart has scored 35 and 34 fantasy points in his last 2 games, playing 32 and 36 minutes. So I like Marcus Smart here versus the Indiana Pacers. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Desmond Bane from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Desmond Bane has averaged 36.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. He's projected at 36.2 fantasy points here tonight. Now, he's going to need about 38 fantasy points to get 5 times value. He's 7,700 DraftKings salary, 100 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 233.5 points scored in this game. And Desmond Bane has scored 38, 27, and 36 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 35, 34, and 34 minutes. Now, I like this pick because Desmond Bane has scored 38, 55, 36, 48, and 43 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Rockets. So I like Desmond Bane here versus the Houston Rockets. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won. And then we'll send you $25 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Denny Avdija from the Washington Wizards playing the San Antonio Spurs, who have the absolute worst defense overall. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Denny Avdija has averaged 22.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. Now, he's projected at 23.5 fantasy points here tonight, but he's been playing more minutes. So I got him projected here at least 30 fantasy points. That would put him over 5 times value. So he's 5,900 DraftKings salary, 100 more on FanDuel. And Denny Avdija has scored 34, 37, and 28 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 31, 33, and 28 minutes. And he scored 42 and 32 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Spurs. So I like Denny Avdija here versus the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like Keegan Murray from the Sacramento Kings playing the Phoenix Suns, who have a good defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing power forwards. Keegan Murray has averaged 23 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 16% usage rate. He's projected at 24.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.6 times value, but I do think he can score 28 fantasy points or more, get you over 5 times value. He's only 5,300 DraftKings salary, 300 more on FanDuel, and Keegan Murray has scored 27, 38, and 37 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 39, 31, and 35 minutes. And Keegan Murray, not his history versus the Suns, not that great, but just keep in mind he hasn't been playing the minutes that he's been playing recently. He's playing really good minutes, heavy minutes, 39 minutes last game. So averaging 31 to 39 minutes in the last 3 games. So averaging right around 34, 35 minutes. So I like Keegan Murray here versus the Phoenix Suns. Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, moving on to the center position. So he's also eligible at power forward, and normally I do play him as a power forward, but he's also eligible here at the center position. So take a look at Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors, playing the Philadelphia 76ers, who have a good defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing centers. Draymond Green has averaged 30.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. Now he's projected at 30.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 6,000 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. And Draymond Green has scored 44, 30, and 26 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 24, 33, and 30 minutes. And he's had relatively decent success here versus the 76ers. 3 out of his last 4 games were good, scoring roughly 30 fantasy points. So I do think he's got 30, 40 plus fantasy point upside. So I like Draymond Green here versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Now you could also consider Miles Turner from the Indiana Pacers playing the Boston Celtics. Now the Celtics have a good defense, but Miles Turner has averaged 35.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He's projected at 34.6 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.2 times value. He's 6,600 DraftKings salary, 900 more on FanDuel. Miles Turner has scored 30, 35, and 31 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 28, 28, and 29 minutes. But I do like that he scored 61 fantasy points in his last game versus the Celtics. So that might be a signal that Miles Turner likes to play these Boston Celtics, or he just had a one-off game that was really good. But I do like that player versus team history. showing 61 fantasy points in his last game versus the Celtics. Will he do it again here tonight? We have to find out. So I like Miles Turner here versus the Boston Celtics. You know, there's a lot of 5 to 6K range center picks here tonight. You could also play like Bobby Portis at 5,600 DraftKings salary, scored 37, 27, and 31 fantasy points in the last 3 games. He's projected at 5.2 times value. You could play a guy like Christian Wood. Although his salary has moved up a little bit, he's still producing fairly well, or really well. He scored 33, 39, and 45 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And he has a fantastic matchup here versus the Charlotte Hornets, who have the 4th worst defense overall, give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing centers. So he's 6,900 DraftKings salary, 900 more on FanDuel. But he also scored 31 and 64 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Hornets. So I would consider Christian Wood here versus the Charlotte Hornets. And then for $100 more, you got Alperen Sengun. That name, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Alperen Sengun. So he's 7,000 DraftKings salary. And he scored 44 and 31 fantasy points in his last 2 games, averaging 34.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game. He's got a pretty good track record here versus the Grizzlies, scored 44, 29, and 45 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Grizzlies. Jacob Piotr is also in a good spot here versus the Detroit Pistons. And he'd probably be the guy that I go with if I'm going to pay $7K. He's at 7,200 DraftKings salary, 500 more on FanDuel. And he scored 42, 31, and 31 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And his last 5 games versus the Pistons, he scored 39, 24, 52, 40, and 21 fantasy points. So I also like Jacob Piotr here versus the Detroit Pistons.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.